Give me no. Now we're going to look at it from what would happen if I actually did the right thing. I come to my vehicle before I act anyway, I observe, and I look, I see him coming up. So So now we're going to look at it from what would happen if I actually did the right thing. I come to my vehicle before I act anyway, I observe, and I look, I see him coming up. So now let's go ahead and look at this situation. The hands are up. We can't always have our hands up, but we can generally have them in an area that they're accessible to protect our face and our upper body. So in this situation, I had my hands down, but the moment that I noticed the threat, I brought my hands up. The second thing that I do is that I like to do a preventive kick. I like to kick forward into the lower body of the person depending on their height and type of attack that's coming in. This is not a simple thing to do that you would teach a brand new student to do. They should work with their hands first, brace their body, and attack with their hands. A more advanced student, you can feel more comfortable with their ability to low kick into the shin or the knee, or in my case, I will kick a little bit higher to stop forward momentum and bring the person directly into my hands. Here we look at the structure that happens when you are able to use a good palm strike into the face. First, you have to have proper elbow mechanics. You have to have proper mechanics all the way up the body. The other thing that you have to have is that you have to have a good hand structure for the strike that you're going to use so that you make sure that it fits exactly with the face. So we mechanically chain these movements together to make sure that we get the most that we can out of the strike that we're going to use. So when you work with a training partner, make sure that you focus on getting your hand to the face. Don't worry about exactly where it's going. I've done this so many times that I know exactly where to hit. You may begin just using a palm strike into the side of the head or into the forehead. But as long as you have the proper elbow mechanics, you're going to be able to get a lot of power out of the hips into your opponent. In this photo, we're looking at the body mechanics to make sure that this strike goes off properly so that we can go on the attack. You can see that I've driven him up in the video and I'm driving him back towards the hard edge of the car. I've braced my body so that I have a good brace so that if he does push back, I can brace up against the vehicle or push off from the ground with good friction in order to strike him back. Now, it's important to remember that sometimes when we're in parking lots, you can have oil or water or some type of slick surface that can cause you problems with your friction. That's why you want to, as we discussed in the video, brace yourself against the car. The cupped hand blow comes after the palm strike. It's a big weapon for a big target, and it does a lot of damage. We're not trying to Bruce Lee our way through our opponent. We're trying to do as much damage as we can do. So with this cupped hand blow, I'm going to repeatedly strike his head against the vehicle. You guessed it, that hard edge, and target everything I have towards the hard edge of the vehicle so that the vehicle is attacking him as I attack him. And in this next little segment, you can see him bounce off the vehicle. One of the questions that I most often get is well, why are you doing these cupped hand blows? Why don't you punch the person? The amount of power that you can see that comes from the mechanical structure, and it's a constant driving into him. I'm using a bone vector that is going straight through, so I'm getting a full structure behind that hand. You can see the power that it does to bounce him off the car. Combined with the bracing of the body and the proper mechanical structure, this is a very powerful blow. It does so much damage, and to attack to the vehicle, you can see that bounce. Now imagine that bounce being the person's head. So when you replay this, look at these things, and then when you go through and you begin to work on them yourself, you can take these snippets and look at them and use them for your own training purposes to make sure that you're reinforcing with your students what you should do. exactly what I'm going to do. Even in this situation, which is controlled and I knew he was coming up, things miss. My first thing that I went for was get my hands up and get him bent. I'm controlling the hand here, and I immediately came across into a cupped hand strike. Then started working my strikes up against the vehicle. I came to this hard edge, and that's where I wanted the strikes to happen, was the hard edge. Everything stayed tight inside, and then once I got him up against it, that's when the slamming happened. Now what happens in this situation is that if he had a knife, which he does, and he had pulled it, I've controlled it up against the vehicle. Go ahead and get your knife, hold it in your hand, don't come out with it. So I can slam the knife down while working the head. But I don't have a means of escape at this point because I'm blocked back here. That's why confined spaces are so important, is realizing where our walls are. At this point, to escape, I would have to come around and push him back and then make my way backwards. Or, come back, from here, I could bring him around and drive him into there and then make my way. These are the things that we have to concern ourselves with. Our initial strikes, how do we get that person off of us quickly? Then what are we doing to control them at that point and drive them to our hard edges? Then we have to figure out, are we going to fight or are we going to make an escape?